All right, welcome to the Explainer. Today, we are going to build you an ultimate mental toolkit. I'm talking about a set of really powerful thinking skills that you can use for pretty much any challenge that life throws at you. So, let me ask you something. When you're up against a really tough problem, at work, at home, wherever, what's your first move? Are you the type to just dive right in? Or maybe you're a pros and cons list person? Or hey, maybe you just trust your gut, right? Well, here's the thing. The most effective thinkers out there, they don't just have one go-to move. Nope, they've got a complete toolkit just packed with different approaches. It's not about finding that one single magic bullet. It's about knowing exactly which tool to pull out for the job at hand.
Okay, let's dive in. First up, we've got the master tool. This is the one that kind of organizes the whole toolbox. We're talking about critical thinking. A lot of people hear the word critical and they immediately think it's about being negative or just tearing things down. But that's not it at all, really. Critical thinking is actually a super constructive process. It's all about examining your own assumptions, digging into the actual evidence, and then building your way to a conclusion that's actually, justified. And what's so cool about this is that critical thinking isn't this standalone thing you do. It's more like the toolbox itself. It's the framework that holds all the other key skills. Things like decision-making, problem-solving, even creativity. They all live inside this bigger process. All right, so let's reach into that kit and pull out our first tool, decision-making. I mean, think about it. We make tons of decisions every single day, right? But the real question is, how do we get better at making the big ones, the ones that really matter? And right away, we need to draw a really important line in the sand here. See, you can make a decision about what to have for lunch, right? That's not exactly a problem. But problem solving, that always kicks off with some kind of issue that needs a solution. So making a decision is a huge part of it, for sure. But solving a problem is the entire journey. Now, whenever we're trying to make a choice, we're basically trying to predict the future, which means we're dealing with probability. Sometimes that's really objective. Based on cold, hard facts, like a weather model saying there's a 40% chance of snow. But a lot of the time, it's subjective. It's based on our gut, our personal experience, that manager's hunch. And honestly, both of those can be incredibly valuable.
Okay, here's a fantastic word for something I guarantee we all do, even if we don't have a name for it. Satisficing. It's this mashup of satisfy and suffice. And it basically means you stop looking for the absolute 100% perfect in every way solution. Instead, you go for the one that's just good enough.
And this example is perfect because it shows the dark side of satisficing. The manager's immediate problem is solved. They filled the empty spots. And that feels like a victory, right? But by just hiring the first acceptable person, they're completely ignoring the real problem, the thing that's causing all the turnover in the first place. It's a classic Band-Aid on a bullet wound.
So this is a good time to pause and ask yourself, when was the last time you went for the good enough solution instead of the perfect one? And look, sometimes that's totally the right move. But other times, well, just like with that manager, it might just be covering up a much bigger issue you need to deal with. But for those really big decisions where good enough is definitely not going to cut it, having a structured process like this is an absolute lifesaver. It makes you slow down and be deliberate. You start by figuring out what you're really trying to achieve. You set your criteria, you weigh them. Then you find alternatives, test them out, and this is key, you try to figure out what could go wrong before you pull the trigger. Then, finally, you act and see how it went. Okay, let's put that tool down and pick up the next one, problem solving. Remember how we said it was the whole journey? Well, this is where you take those decision-making skills and apply them to a real, specific challenge. And to see how this works in the real world, let's look at this case study. It's a pretty high-stakes situation. There was this nurse manager, Latonia Wilson, who saw that her unit was having these repeated and, frankly, dangerous medication errors. The thing is, she realized the problem wasn't that the nurses didn't care. It was a flaw baked into the system itself. So, what did Latonia's team do? They followed these exact 7 steps. First, they defined the real problem, not nurses are making mistakes, but why are these specific mistakes happening? They gathered info and found out the 2 different medicine bags looked almost identical and were stored right next to each other. That was the root cause. It wasn't a training problem, it was a stocking problem. And that insight led them to a simple but brilliant solution. Use different colored labels and put the bags in totally separate bins. They tried it, they evaluated it, and guess what? The errors vanished. A permanent fix.
Okay, but coming up with an idea like using different colored labels, that takes a little something extra, doesn't it? It's not just pure step-by-step logic. It's about seeing a possibility that wasn't there before. And that, my friends, brings us to the secret ingredient in our mental toolkit, creativity.
And let's get one thing straight right away. When we talk about creativity here, we're not talking about being an artist or a poet. I mean, that's great, but that's not it. In this context, creativity is a totally practical skill. It's the ability to smash old patterns of thinking and connect different ideas in brand new ways to come up with a solution nobody else saw.
And check this out. Creativity isn't some magical lightning bolt that strikes from the heavens. It's actually a process with real stages. First, you prepare. You just soak up all the information you can. Then you incubate. And this is my favorite part. You just walk away and let your subconscious chew on it for a while. That's when you get that aha moment of insight. But you're not done. You still have to verify it. Test the idea to see if it actually holds water. The best part? Anyone can learn to do this.
All right, so now you've got the main tools in your kit: critical thinking, decision-making, problem-solving, and creativity. But, it's like having a brand new set of power tools. If you don't know what not to do, you can still mess things up pretty badly. So let's talk about the common traps that can completely derail your thinking.
These are the 3 biggies you gotta watch out for. First, there's rigidity. That's just classic tunnel vision, where you can't see past your own perspective. Then you have preconceived ideas. That's when you walk into a situation already knowing the answer, so you're not really open to anything else. And finally, personality biases. This is a sneaky one. It's when you make a decision based on wanting people to like you or because that's what the boss wants, instead of what's actually the best choice.
When you really look at it, all of these traps, they all come from the same place. They come from that quiet little assumption in the back of your head that you're already right. The second you stop questioning your own thinking is the exact second you stop being a critical thinker. And really, that's the main idea I want to leave you with today. Mastering this stuff, this mental toolkit, it's not just about memorizing a bunch of steps. The real secret is developing the humility to constantly question your own assumptions. So here's my question for you. What's just one assumption you're holding on to right now that might